What's up, man?
How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Great. Great to get to talk to you for a few and talk about the new tune and the show and look in the rearview mirror a little bit. But let's get into the here and now to get the party started and light them up, man. Been having fun playing that on the radio and great rockin' tune and great to hear some new music with Karabi back in the band. How did that one come
Yeah.
together? Were you guys all in the same room for that one or sending files?
Yeah. No, we were, and thanks, man. It is great to have Krabi back. We just a quick backstory. We we were promoting a best of last year and asked John to come back and tour with us, and he was into it, and we had a blast. And before we knew it, we were talking about new music. So we're in the studio, and everybody had brought some ideas, and Marty Fredrickson, our producer, would say, "Hey, let's go with this one today. Let's do something fast, or let's do whatever." And um, one day we had about 5 songs together, and then he said, "Hey, I got this song from Stevie D from Buck Cherry. He was just getting ready to produce. I think he's working with Buck Cherry at the moment."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Stevie sent me this riff or this song idea for Buck Cherry, but I think it's really cool, man. Maybe we should talk to him and see." So we pinched that riff, and then we kind of we kind of rewrote the song a little bit around his original riff, which was really just simple and great, and that's how it started. And we all threw our 2 cents in. Marty kind of helped. Marty's super. He's just amazing. He's so talented with writing and arranging and everything. And so he's like, "Okay, what would you do now?" And I was just like, "I would. How about this?" And he goes, "Yeah, I like that. Okay, cool. You do that, and then we'll go back to this part, and then we need a chorus." So then we just went back to the riff and did a kind of a big, what do you call it, anthem kind of chorus, and that's it. It's just a straight up kind of Dead Daisies with the influence of Stevie D and Aerosmith, and sorry, not Aerosmith, AC/DC. And then that's the kind of songs that we're like, straight ahead, kick-ass rock and roll. It's not reinventing the wheel by any means, but it's nice to hear John on it, and he sounds great.
Yeah, and just light him up. I don't know. I just picture him taking a hit off of his cigarette, like walking up to the microphone and singing it.
Yeah, I mean, I when I heard that, and we were talking about, and actually some sports teams are kind of using it already. We have a guy named Fred, part of the team, management team, and he shops songs to sports. So he took that right away. I think we mixed it, or it was mixed, and he took it right away to the Yankees and different a few
Wow.
other teams. And I forget who decided. There were somebody in the NHL playoffs was playing it at their arena. They weren't allowed to like release it or anything yet, but and then he told me that one of the basketball teams was playing it. So you think of when you hear that chorus, "Light 'em up," it's like, imagine the lights are down and they got spotlight on the floor, and then "Light 'em up," wow. So it's just got a good energy, good for driving, good for working out. Whatever you're doing, it's going to make you do it faster.
That's what we want. That's what we want. Some motivation while we're doing any of those things. And I
Yeah.
imagine there's a full album coming of new material.
Yeah, that we've got. We did it very quickly. Like I said, we kind of would sit down with Marty, and we'd all be plugged in, with bass and drums, guitars, and John would kind of scat out just ideas while we were jamming on ideas. And we'd get something down, we'd go back and listen to it, decide, hey, we need this part doesn't need to be there. We'd chop that out and then go back and re-record it. And once we had a good, solid, blueprint, we'd put it down and mark this rough title onto the board. So we would put like "Light 'em up" on the board or whatever it was. And we got there's a bunch of songs in the album. There's probably about another 4 songs that are very similar in that vein.
Cool.
And then we've got some left turns that are really cool, a couple of deep cuts, and one kind of really epic.
Hmm.
Um, well, there's this track. We were down in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, at Fame Studios. It's a really famous place, probably why they called it Fame. But it's where Wilson Pickett recorded and Aretha Franklin. And we just happened to start writing a song, and we stopped and said, this is really cool. We got to save this for whenever we do make a new album. And so we popped out that track and finished it up, and it's epic. It takes you on a journey, and Karabi's lyrics are just crazy haunting on that one. So I'm excited. It's got a good variation, the album.
Awesome. Looking forward to any idea when that comes out next year, this year?
It's coming out this year. It'll come out in September. And we're probably going to pop another single out in a few weeks. Well, maybe it's July, but I think soon we'll have another single coming out. And on the tour, we're actually going to be playing a bunch of new stuff live, kind of road testing it in the U.S. on this run. So it's going to be
Cool.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the next thing I was going to get into is the show got you close to home at the world famous Whisky A Go Go coming up here on Thursday, June 20th, and
Yeah.
obviously set list. So we are going to be working in the new ones. Light 'em Up will be in there, obviously, and maybe some other new ones.
Yep, absolutely. As many as they'll let us get away with. We'll probably do, I would say, 3 or 4 new songs, including "Light 'Em Up."
Wow.
And we did a cover of a song that I think will be in the set. It's really cool. That'll be one of them. It turned out it sounds like a Dead Daisies song. So that, and it's a kick-ass track. So that'll probably be in there. But we'll see what else makes it. But definitely, the songs that people know are going to be in there. And there'll also be some songs from the Glenn era that we started doing, and John sings them great. He just does it his own way. He's Karabi,
Yeah.
It's it's like you could tell him, okay, can you do let's do an Ozzy song, and it would just sound like Karabi singing Ozzy, or whatever. So he's just him, and he's a great front man. He puts on an awesome show. People have a blast, and a lot of my friends came to the last show we played in LA, and were really, really surprised. The band's on fire, and John's leading us to the thing,
To the end zone.
leading us somewhere.
Hey, speaking of the band, some updates, I think, since the last time I talked to you now. Michael Devin on bass and Tommy Clufetos on drums.
Yeah, Michael Devin came in last year for that Best Of tour, and Michael's a great player. And we had Brian Tishy on that tour, and now we've got Tommy coming back in. Brian's doing his thing. Brian's doing his thing with Gene Simmons, I think.
Right.
And Tommy Clufetos is in. And Tommy's been here before. He's a monstrous player, and him and Devin together, because Devin is one of the heaviest bass players I've worked with, and he's very melodic, and him and Tommy together is going to be a fat, thunderous groove, thunderous.
And the one guy we haven't talked about, the OG, the creator, David Lowy. Talk about him as a player. I don't hear much about him as a musician. What kind of writer and guitarist is he? What's his style?
He's a very simplistic, honest player, and in my opinion, there's always, well, you listen to Light 'Em Up, and you'll hear his downstroke part that he plays, and it's integral to the song as a bunch of Dead Daisies, but pretty much all the Dead Daisies stuff. He has a thread that he runs through all those songs, which is like, it's basically like Australian pub rock. It's a lot of downstrokes, almost punkish. But I like basically playing off of another guitar player. It started when I was working with Reb Beach with Whitesnake, and
Yeah.
Reb he's a brilliant guitar player and different style, and I just found that, like, instead of trying for us to do the exact same thing at all the same times, it's nice to basically, I'll do my thing and try and lay down a nice bed. Reb could kind of dance on top of it, doing his freeforms thing. And that's kind of what David Lowy does for me. He basically lays down this really kick-ass bed, and I can kind of fill in the blanks.
That's awesome, man. I love when there's so many two guitar bands. I feel like nowadays that both guitar players are just playing the same thing, and they're just trying to make it heavy. And obviously, there's times when that needs to happen. But I love the dichotomy and mixing up and having two different things being played over two different guitars.
Yeah, I mean, it started with the Dead Daisies when David Lowy and Richard Forrest were working together, and Richard is kind of obviously he's a monster guitar player, but he would him and David would create these parts that were offsetting each other, and it was really cool. Like Richard would be doing one thing, David would be doing something totally different, but together it made a really interesting riff. There's a song called "You and I" from the Revolution record where you can really hear that. And then same kind of thing on Light 'Em Up, where we basically were looking for you know, David to lay it down thick, and then I would fill in the blanks on top, some kind of either complementary part or maybe with a different sound or something like that.
The melodic stuff. Talking about the lineup, and you had mentioned Glenn obviously was in the band for the couple records, and
Yeah.
last time I had talked to you, it was the both of you for Radiance when that came out, and I don't know, man, it always kind of felt like temporary to me him being in the band, but at the same token, too, I feel like you got to jump on that opportunity. Is that kind of how it was? Like, hey, he's willing to do it
we
right now. Let's just see what happens.
You know, we had a great run. It was just weird with Glenn because he was 100% committed. But then COVID came because we had the Holy Ground record was in the can,
Right.
and Glenn and I had got on a good run working on preparing that record with basically us and David and Dean Castronovo, and it was in the can, and then COVID hit and it just blew everything out. So we didn't have a proper release and we didn't get to tour properly. I don't think we did anything in 2020 except for basically write a bunch of new songs, which some of them ended up on Radiance. But it just got long-winded to get back on the road, and it was still awkward in 21 how touring was, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was just a bit of pressure on the whole thing. So yeah, in the end, we decided we wanted to do a best of to basically tour off of, and Glenn wanted to do Deep Purple at that time, so we asked John. And that was basically it. Of course, it's always amicable with Glenn. We love him, and he brought a great dynamic to the band.
And you had played with him prior to him being in the band. You'd played in Glenn's solo band before that, right?
Yeah, yeah. I had basically, that story is that I had been in Whitesnake for a long time and was going through a divorce, and just needed to be off the road and take care of my son. And so I left Whitesnake and took a gig in Vegas, and that was fun for a bit. And I was, and I really enjoyed it, and it was great playing with some people like Howard Leese and a bunch of other, guys, Hugh McDonald from Bon Jovi. But I just got burnt out on that, being in Vegas and that show maybe a little bit. And Glenn called me and said, "Hey, do you want to go on the road with me? My guitar player Soren's busy, and I really need somebody I can trust." And I was like, "Yes." So we had a blast. It's just for the first time, I guess, for a long time, it was just a trio. It was just me, Glenn, and a drummer named Pontus Emberg, and we had a blast, man. Just throwing down. We basically have a rough template of where the song was going to start and how it would kind of go, but we'd always go free form, just go off, and that's so fun to do.
I'm curious, all those years with Glenn in the solo and then with the Daisies for a few, is there anything you learned from him?
Oh, totally. I learn off of everybody, basically. There's always, I mean, I I feel like I'm still I feel like I'm still a kid, if you really want to know the truth, Mike, because I basically play guitar for a living, and I have to force myself into the responsible world of being a dad and doing stuff. But I just love it. And, I learned a lot from Glenn. When I was talking about Glenn and I doing a bunch of demos and writing and stuff for Radiance, um, a lot of that stuff was stuff that he was like, "I really want to get this stuff down and make a little demo so I can present it to the band." And I said, "Well, I'll come help you." And instead of him showing me the part, whatever part he wanted to do, I was like, "Just let me record you." And I'd go, "Give me your tempo," and he'd give me his basic tempo of what it was, and I'd set up a track in the computer with a drum machine. Actually, a lot of times just with a click track. And I'd say, okay, play your riff, play it to this thing. Great, now double it. Okay, what's the next part? He goes, well, the verse would be like this. I go, okay, play that for 2 bars. And then I would just have him double that, and then I'd kind of just fly stuff around and arrange it. And the way he played guitar was very different than me, and there was some stuff that sounded just really cool that I wouldn't naturally do. So I go, Glenn, once I get that feel, it's going to be killer, man. And he's like, yeah. So, and then as far as with Glenn, he's hilarious because I would go like, Glenn, I got this idea, it's like, goes like this, whatever. He'd be like, I mean, we could work on something, but, why don't we work on one of my ideas? I'm like, okay, let's work on one of yours, but let's do this first, really quick. I just want you to throw down whatever comes to mind. He goes, I don't really hear anything. And all of a sudden I'd just stick a mic in front of his face, and he would say, whoa, what? Okay, play me what you got. And play it for him. And then he'd start singing, and it was like, and he'd have lyrics and everything. He was just pulling stuff out of the air. And it was like, dude, that's amazing. He goes, apparently it's amazing. But he was just funny. He'd pull out these amazing things, and I would tell him, I got this vision of us doing a song where you're not playing bass, you're just singing, and then in the chorus, and basically you're holding court on the stage with 2 guitar players. And Glenn had never played with 2 guitar players, I don't think, ever.
Oh, wow.
So as far as like in a band situation, he did some stuff, I think, with Kings of Chaos, the jam band, but never in an original thing. So I said, and then in the chorus, I want you to come in heavy, and that was a song called Like No Other. And at first Glenn was like, what do you mean I'm not going to play? And I go, you're just the lead singer, man. That's it. You don't have to play. You just let us carry it. And then when the chorus hits, the bass will come in and it'll just be like, pow, And he's like, oh, I like that, and yeah, we had great times. I love Glenn.
One other old bandmate I wanted to talk about, and you were just out there celebrating him for the Rock for Ronnie charity event a few weeks back. And how was that experience that day for you?
It was great, seeing a lot of friends. And the day before, no, actually, that was on Sunday. That was on a Sunday. The Thursday before was the 16th, which was the 14th anniversary of Ronnie passing. And me and my wife went up to pay our respects and to see Wendy and a bunch of his family and some of the band. Scott Warren was there and Simon was there, and yeah, it was beautiful. He's got an amazing resting place up in, as you know, Forest Lawn.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And I hadn't been up there, to be honest. I hadn't been up there since we were at the funeral. And so then the following Sunday was the concert and the ride for Ronnie. And it was great, man. A bunch of friends, Tracy Guns and Brett Scallion, Rudy Sarzo, all these, Quiet Riot played, Lita Ford played, and I played a couple songs. Yeah, it was a great day. Beautiful weather, a great new venue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was curious, man, going back to those Dio days, I was trying to do the math because you were there in like the early 2000s, right? Time frame.
Yeah.
Did you do that Brave New World tour opening for Maiden?
No, actually, that tour, that was in 2003 or four. Three. That was in 2003. And so what happened is, originally Whitesnake would ask me to play, and I asked Ronnie, and he said, yeah. And it was going to be a 2-month tour. And we just had a blast. I mean, the Whitesnake band was like on fire, and just like the Dio band. And Coverdale said, do you want to carry on? I got dates, gonna finish out the year. I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. And in the breaks, I was going up to Ronnie's, we were starting to write for what turned out to be Master of the Moon, which I didn't actually, in the end, didn't contribute anything to. But we started writing, and one day he goes, oh, we got this tour with Iron Maiden coming up. in the summertime. And I was like, oh, Ronnie, are you serious? Are you sure? He's like, yeah. I go, because I just committed to David Coverdale about this summer run. And he was pissed, man. He was like, what the fuck? You know, and he was like, what? I was really upset. He kind of booted me out of the house. It was like,
Wow.
writing session is over, get the fuck out, you know, kind of thing. He was pissed. And I felt horrible, but you know, I had to, you know, I had a great opportunity to work with Coverdale, and in the end, it paid off, you know, with a lot of new music for Whitesnake. But and I went back to Ronnie, you know, a couple times. In 2005, he asked me to come back and fill in on a tour in Europe, and then I ended up doing another tour in Europe with him in 2005, which ended up being the Holy Diver Live DVD. And and that's when Coverdale was like, "Hey, I hear you know, you're back with Ronnie," and some people are saying it's full time, and I just said, "Look, we need to get, if you want to keep Whitesnake going, we got to do some new music," and he agreed, and that's when we started writing together.
Ah.
But it's all kind of intertwined. But in the bottom line is that I missed that tour, and I heard it was a great tour.
You know, just to put a button on the Ronnie side of things, uh, playing all those tunes, man. Holy Diver versus Rainbow in the Dark. If you had to pick one, which one of the two?
Holy Diver. I love it, man. It's just classic Ronnie and Jimmy Bain. You know, that's I mean, if you look at the what's the most famous Ronnie Sabbath song, Heaven and Hell, right?
Yeah.
It was basically like him doing his own Heaven and Hell. And Holy Diver, man, it's just the riff is just sick, you know. There was a song, you probably heard it. It was about 10 years ago or so. Foo Fighters came out with a song that had a riff very similar.
Hmm. Oh yeah, yeah. Hold on. Yeah, I can hear it in my head now that you pointed that out. Ah.
Um, I don't know what it's called, but it was definitely like, and Dave Grohl loved Ronnie, so you know, all those guys. Who didn't love Ronnie, you know?
Seriously. You know, in moving into the Whitesnake days, man, that I totally remember that Forevermore album coming out and playing Love Will Set You Free at the time on the radio. But
Yeah,
for me, dude, the opening track, All Out of Luck,
yeah.
I'm a sucker for Whammy Bar, man. I feel like the Whammy Bar went away for so long, and now it's kind of coming back here and there. But just that opening Whammy Bar and that tune, all
That was classic Reb Beach right there. He we had the basic track together, and we wanted Reb to be more involved because it's just difficult. Reb lived in Pennsylvania. We were out here. It was just we'd get on a roll with this songwriting thing, and it was like I think that we were, especially David was like, let's just keep going, you know. And before we knew it, we had an album. But he consciously wanted to make sure that Reb was more involved, and I did too. And so Reb came in for a couple of weeks and just worked on the tracks, and he definitely made everything better. You know, it was little bits like that, like the Whammy Bar thing, and his solo in a bunch of the songs, you know, was killer. So yeah,
man, and talking like Holy Diver being fun to play, I got to imagine that Still of the Night was one of the best songs to play live. Just that riff and
it
that.
is. It's yeah. I mean, if you watch the DVD we did with it was in London back in 2004. We did a DVD with it had Marco Mendoza on bass and Tommy and Reb and I, Timothy Drury, and the band was. That's when the band. It was like the band was back. Whitesnake was back. No new music yet, but we were like on fire. Really, we were really well rehearsed and had a ton of confidence. And I had, you know, of course, Tommy is unbelievable, and Marco is larger than life. Reb is a brilliant guitar player, and I was coming off a deal, so I had a lot of confidence. And Coverdale was just great, man. That I just happened to hear that Still of the Night on something came up on my phone, and it sounded pretty good. And I was like, that sounds I've always struggled with how that actual really the real riff goes, and I think we got it right, but you never know. I'd have to ask Sykes, how did you play it exactly?
That's a beast of a song, and just imagine so much fun to play. Doug, I appreciate all the time. Last thing I wanted to hit you with, man, we're an old school radio station. We do a feature called Mandatory Metallica every night at 10 o'clock, which you're going to be a part of, and doing some
Cool.
digging around. You did a Metallica tune on record before, the Metallic Attack, the
Yeah.
Metallica Ultimate Tribute album, which rest in peace Bob Kulick put together. But talk about getting pulled into that one and making that tune. You guys covered Holier Than Thou.
Holier Than Thou. And there, actually, you know what happened? Yeah, I played. I don't actually know if I played on. I might have just played rhythm on that.
Hmm.
But either way, it doesn't matter. It was a great experience. Bob Kulick and I were friends, and he said, doing the Iron Maiden next project, Iron Maiden, I need a guitar player to basically just keep everything together. So you basically just need to learn all the songs and come in and track it so that each different drummer that comes in has like somebody that they can count on and knows the arrangement, because some of the arrangements are pretty deep, you know. And I remember two things I remember was trying to, learning those downstroke James Hetfield guitar parts. Kirk Hammett also great, but but um,
James Hetfield.
James was just, his downstrokes were just insanely fast and super precise, and that was a challenge, really worth the time that it made me do that. And then the other thing I remember was just all the great drummers that came in. I mean, it was like everyone from Tommy Aldrich played, and Mickey D, and Jason Bonham, Randy Castillo.
Rest in peace.
One of the greatest ones, Ainsley Dunbar from Whitesnake, from the '87 record. And the story is sometimes the guys would come in and they wouldn't have, maybe, these guys are busy, man. They're all big rock stars. They maybe didn't have all their homework 100% on it, everything, because those songs are deep, and we'd kind of have to go through it, and we'd listen to the record as well, and kind of then finally we'd get the drum sound. But Ainsley Dunbar came in, I think we did For Whom the Bell Tolls. You'd have to check it. But For Whom the Bell Tolls that's one that's super deep, and it's like I had to chart it out on 3 papers because it's got like these 3 movements. And Ainsley just came in and crushed it. I mean, it was insane. The guy, he was older even back then. I think he passed a few years ago, but a great drummer, and he came in and killed it. Another guy who blew me away, I was friends with him, Mickey D, but I'd never really been blown away. Like, he came in and it was like, this guy, it was like one take, and he nailed it.
Well, I mean,
So yeah,
that's the big inspiration for Metallica is Motorhead, so it makes sense that Mickey D would come in and just slay it.
he did, man. He's an unbelievable drummer, and I mean, he's got a great gig. He's playing with the Scorpions, all that, and he was a long time, one of the probably the longest drummer in Motorhead,
Yeah.
for sure. But people don't mention him as much as they should, because he's just a powerhouse.
Just to put a button on the Metallica thing, is there a song we can play for you on Mandatory Metallica?
Well, Master of Puppets is great, but For Whom the Bell Tolls is that. Listen to that drum track. It's pretty slang.
And the bass.
Dave Lombardo played on it. Speaking of Slayer, he played on that album as well. It was like it was Christmas time for drummers on that Metallica record.
Yeah, seriously. I saw Eric Singer played on the track, on the Holier Than Thou track.
Okay. Well, he's no slouch. And Eric, did he sing it as well? Because he's a great singer as well.
Chuck Billy.
Oh, okay.
Testament.
That's good company. That's good company.
Yeah, I'd say.
He's
and
a
Alex
legend.
Skolnick.
There you go. Well, that's those are legendary guys. But if I get a choice, put on For Whom the Bell Tolls.
Beautiful. We'll rock that one for you. Thank you so much, Doug. Appreciate it.
All right, bro. Have a good one. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks. Bye-bye.